Hello everyone. Naruto Fix here, back with another amazing What If Naruto fanfic. Which is, what if Naruto was loved by Hinata, Sakura, Temari, and more? Part 1. If you enjoy Naruto stories, don't forget to like and subscribe. It really helps the journey grow. Now let's head right into today's fanfic. Naruto Uzumaki had never asked to be loved. For most of his life, he had only asked to be seen. Seen as more than the boy with the fox sealed inside him. Seen as more than a loud troublemaker chasing impossible dreams. Seen as someone who stayed when others left. Somewhere along that long road, from loneliness to war, from pain to peace, something had changed. Naruto did not notice it at first. He was too busy rebuilding a world that had nearly torn itself apart. But while Naruto was focused on saving everyone else, hearts were quietly turning toward him. Peace changed people. Without constant danger, emotions no longer needed to hide behind survival. Feelings that had once been suppressed by fear, duty, or denial finally had space to breathe. And Naruto, unknowingly, became the place those feelings gathered. Hinata Hyuga had loved Naruto for years. Her love was not sudden or dramatic. It had grown slowly, quietly, strengthened by every time Naruto stood back up after falling, every time he believed in someone who had stopped believing in themselves. But now, her love felt different. Naruto was no longer the boy she admired from afar. He was a man. Calm, steady, present. When he spoke to her, he listened. When she hesitated, he waited. When she trained, he trusted her strength without hovering. Hinata felt her heart ache in a way that was both familiar and terrifying. Because this time, it felt possible. And possibility was far more dangerous than distance. Sakura Haruno's feelings were more complicated. Once, she had seen Naruto as someone to protect, someone to scold, someone who annoyed her endlessly while standing unshakably by her side. Somewhere along the way, that irritation had turned into respect. That respect had grown into something warmer. Naruto didn't try to impress her anymore. He didn't chase her attention or demand acknowledgement. He stood beside her as an equal, sharing responsibility, listening to her doubts, trusting her judgment. One evening, after a long shift at the hospital, Sakura realized something unsettling. Naruto made her feel understood without making her feel weak. That realization stayed with her long after he walked away. Temari of the Sand noticed Naruto in a way she hadn't expected. She had always respected strength, but she respected control even more. Naruto had both, and, more importantly, the wisdom not to abuse either. He never spoke over her, never challenged her authority for pride. When they disagreed, he listened instead of dominating the conversation. With Naruto, Temari felt something rare. She felt like she did not need to sharpen herself to be heard. That kind of respect bred something dangerous. Admiration. Ino Yamanaka felt it sharply and immediately. Naruto didn't flirt, didn't perform, didn't try to win her attention the way others did. He treated her emotions seriously, even when she joked him away. He remembered details. He asked questions without steering the answers. He didn't dismiss feelings he didn't fully understand. One afternoon, Ino realized that Naruto was the first person who made her feel seen without wanting anything in return. And that scared her. Naruto remained unaware. He noticed none of the glances that lingered a second too long. None of the silences that carried unspoken thoughts. None of the tension that formed when certain people were together in the same space. To Naruto, these were just bonds. Connections forged through shared hardship, trust, and time. He was being kind. He was being himself. But kindness, when paired with consistency, could turn into something else. Naruto showed up when people needed him. He stayed without asking for credit. He believed without demanding proof. And slowly, hearts began to attach meaning to that presence. The first time Naruto sensed something was wrong was not during a confession. It was during silence. He stood with Hinata after training, the quiet stretching comfortably between them. He noticed how she did not step away immediately like she used to. How her presence felt heavier, warmer. Later, Sakura hesitated before leaving his side after a mission briefing. Temari watched him thoughtfully instead of speaking. Ino looked at him as if trying to understand something she couldn't name. Naruto felt it then. A subtle shift. Something unspoken but undeniable. Standing alone that night, Naruto stared out over the village. I didn't mean for this, he thought. But intention did not erase reality. Naruto Uzumaki had become someone people leaned toward. Not because he asked him to, but because he made him feel safe, respected, and understood. And for the first time in his life, Naruto faced a problem he didn't know how to punch his way through. Multiple hearts, multiple emotions, one Naruto, and no easy answers. This was not a battle of strength. It was a test of honesty. And Naruto did not yet know how it would end. Naruto did not panic when the realization settled in. That surprised him. He had faced gods, monsters, and wars that threatened to erase everything he cared about. Those moments had filled him with urgency, with fire, with certainty about what needed to be done. This was different. This was quiet, slow. It crept into his awareness through glances, pauses, and the weight of unsaid words. And because it was quiet, it was harder to confront. He began to notice the patterns. Hinata lingered now, not out of hesitation, but intention. When Naruto spoke, she listened as if each word mattered, not because she admired him blindly, but because she trusted him. Her eyes no longer dropped in shyness alone. Sometimes, they held his, steady and searching, as if asking a question she hadn't yet found the courage to voice. Sakura no longer teased him the way she used to. Her sharp edges had softened around him. She spoke more honestly, shared more freely, and when Naruto supported her decisions without question, something in her expression shifted, surprise, followed by warmth. Temari watched him with measured interest. She never crowded his space, never pushed conversations further than necessary. But when they spoke, there was an intensity beneath her calm, a recognition between equals. Naruto sensed that she was evaluating him, not as a warrior, but as a man. Ino, meanwhile, oscillated between frustration and fascination. She was sharp enough to notice what others were feeling, including herself. And what she felt unsettled her. Naruto didn't fit into the categories she was used to. He wasn't distant, but he wasn't chasing either. He existed comfortably in the middle, and that made her unsure where she stood. Naruto felt all of this, even if he didn't fully understand it yet. What troubled him wasn't the affection itself. It was the responsibility that came with it. Naruto had always believed that caring deeply was enough. That being sincere would guide him through anything. Now, sincerity alone felt insufficient. These feelings weren't fleeting crushes or misunderstandings. They were layered, grown over time, strengthened by shared experiences and trust. Ignoring them would be cruel. Pretending not to notice would be worse. He thought back to his younger self. Back then, he would have celebrated being wanted, being admired, being loved. Loneliness had shaped him into someone who craved connection, who feared abandonment more than pain. But Naruto was not that boy anymore. Now, he understood that affection could be fragile. That hearts could be bruised not only by rejection, but by indecision. And Naruto was indecisive, not because he was afraid to choose, but because he refused to treat anyone's feelings lightly. One evening, Naruto trained alone, letting his body move while his mind wrestled with questions he had never had to ask before. What did he feel? He cared deeply for all of them, but not in the same way. Some connections were rooted in history, others in respect, others in quiet understanding. Some feelings felt warm and grounding. Others felt challenging, pushing him to grow. Naruto realized something important then. Love was not singular, but commitment demanded clarity. Later, as the village settled into night, Naruto walked through familiar streets, greeting people softly, lost in thought. He stopped at a quiet overlook where he could see the lights of Konoha stretching beneath him. He didn't need to decide everything now. But he needed to stop pretending this was nothing. He needed to listen. Not just to others, but to himself. Naruto Uzumaki had spent his life learning how to fight for others. Now, he faced a different challenge. How to honor multiple hearts without breaking any, including his own. And that challenge, far more than any enemy, demanded patience, honesty, and courage. This was only the beginning. Naruto began to understand that awareness changed everything. Once you noticed something, you couldn't unsee it. Once you acknowledged the weight of emotions around you, you couldn't walk through them carelessly anymore. Naruto moved through the village differently now, not because his actions had changed, but because his attention had. Every interaction felt sharper. Every pause felt heavier. He noticed Hinata first, not because her feelings were new, but because they were no longer hidden behind hesitation alone. When they trained together, her movements were confident, deliberate. She no longer waited for his encouragement before stepping forward. Yet when their training ended, she stayed beside him, not out of uncertainty, but choice. One evening, as they cooled down after practice, Hinata spoke quietly. "You don't rush away anymore." Naruto looked at her, surprised. "Was I rushing before?" Hinata nodded slightly. "You were always moving. Now, you seem present." Naruto felt something tighten in his chest. Presence was not something he had ever thought about before. He had always believed showing up physically was enough. Now he realized presence meant staying emotionally available too. With Sakura, the shift felt grounded in familiarity. They worked together often, long hours filled with routine and responsibility. Sakura trusted him instinctively now. She no longer explained herself defensively or questioned his support. When she made a decision, Naruto backed it without hesitation, and that quiet trust changed the way she looked at him. One night, after finishing a late task, Sakura spoke without turning toward him. "You know, you never doubt me anymore." Quote. Naruto frowned. "Did I used to?" Sakura smiled faintly. "You worried. A lot. Now you just believe." Naruto nodded slowly. "You've earned that belief." Sakura felt her breath catch. It wasn't a compliment meant to impress. It was a statement of fact. And facts carried weight. Temari's presence was rarer, but sharper. When she visited Konoha for meetings, Naruto noticed how their conversations carried a different energy. There was no hesitation, no testing. They spoke plainly, challenged each other honestly. Temari didn't soften herself around him, and Naruto never asked her to. "You don't try to win arguments," she observed once. Naruto shrugged. "I'd rather understand than win." Quote. Temari studied him carefully. "That's dangerous." Naruto raised an eyebrow. "How so?" "People mistake understanding for intimacy," she said. Naruto absorbed that in silence. Temari wasn't accusing him. She was warning him. Ino felt the tension most openly. She was used to reading emotions, used to understanding what people felt before they did. But Naruto confused her. He didn't hide, didn't perform, didn't chase. He was open without being obvious, kind without being suggestive. One afternoon, she confronted him bluntly. "You don't even realize what you do to people, do you?" Naruto blinked. "What do I do?" Ino sighed. "You make them feel important. Individually, not as a group." Naruto frowned. "Is that bad?" Ino looked away. "It's powerful." That word stayed with him. Naruto began to reflect more deeply. He had always believed kindness was universal, that it spread evenly. But he was learning that kindness felt personal when it was consistent, when it adapted, when it remembered. He remembered how Sakura liked her tea. He remembered Hinata's training rhythm. He remembered Temari's preference for directness. He remembered Ino's tendency to mask seriousness with humor. These were small things. But small things accumulated. Late one night, Naruto sat alone, the village quiet beneath him. He asked himself the question he had been avoiding. What did he feel? The answer did not arrive immediately. What came instead was honesty. He felt comfort with some, challenge with others. He felt calm in certain silences, alert in others. Some connections made him feel anchored. Others pushed him to become sharper, more aware. He realized then that affection did not confuse him. What confused him was the fear of hurting people he cared about. Naruto accepted something important that night. He could not protect everyone from pain. He could only protect them from dishonesty. Avoidance would wound more deeply than clarity ever could. And clarity would require courage. Not the kind used in battle, but the kind used in conversation. Naruto Uzumaki had always faced the world head-on. Now, he was learning how to face hearts. Not with answers, but with truth. And that lesson was far from finished. Naruto started choosing his words more carefully. Not because he wanted to distance himself, but because he finally understood that words could shape expectations just as much as actions. For someone who had once spoken from the heart without filter, this restraint felt unfamiliar. Yet it also felt necessary. He wasn't changing who he was. He was refining it. He noticed how this affected his interactions almost immediately. When Hinata spoke, Naruto listened without interrupting, without trying to encourage or reassure unless she asked. He let her finish her thoughts, even when they came slowly. The result surprised him. Hinata seemed steadier, more confident in her own voice. One evening, after training, Hinata thanked him quietly. For waiting, she said. Naruto tilted his head. Waiting. For letting me speak at my own pace. Naruto smiled softly. You don't need permission to be heard. Hinata held his gaze for a moment longer than usual. There was gratitude there, but also something deeper, something unresolved. Naruto felt it. And for the first time, he didn't look away. With Sakura, the change was subtler. They had history. Long, complicated, layered with shared pain and growth. Naruto no longer tried to lighten every serious moment with humor. He trusted Sakura's strength enough to let conversations stay heavy when they needed to. During a quiet break at the hospital, Sakura said, almost casually, "You've stopped trying to protect me from hard truths." Quote. Naruto nodded. "You don't need that from me." Sakura smiled faintly. "No, I don't. But knowing you trust me with them, that matters." Naruto realized then that respect could deepen affection just as much as kindness ever had. Temari's interactions with Naruto remained direct. She appreciated that he didn't soften his words for her or hesitate to disagree. When they spoke, there was no emotional ambiguity, only sharp clarity and mutual respect. "You're careful now," she observed once. Naruto considered the word. "I'm trying to be fair." Temari nodded. "Fairness keeps things honest. Honesty keeps things clean." She paused, then added, "Not everyone can handle that." Quote. Naruto understood the implication. Clarity didn't please everyone, but it prevented misunderstandings from growing into something heavier. Ino tested Naruto's boundaries the most. She noticed when he stopped engaging in playful banter that carried emotional undertones. Not coldly, just neutrally. She pushed once, teasing him about being distant. Naruto didn't deflect. "I'm not distant," he said calmly. "I'm present. Just not leading people on." Ino stared at him, surprised by the straightforwardness. "That's mature," she admitted after a moment. Naruto smiled faintly. "I'm trying." Ino didn't press further. For the first time, she felt clarity instead of tension. Naruto realized something important during these moments. People didn't need him to be everything. They needed him to be clear. And clarity, while uncomfortable at first, created space for everyone to stand on their own. Late that night, Naruto returned to the quiet overlook above the village. The lights below felt steady, familiar. He thought about the different connections in his life, not as competing forces, but as distinct relationships shaped by unique bonds. Hinata represented calm and sincerity. Sakura represented trust and shared growth. Temari represented respect and balance. Ino represented honesty and emotional awareness. Each connection mattered, but none of them could be treated carelessly. Naruto understood now that he didn't need to choose immediately. What he needed was consistency. Consistency between what he felt, what he said, and what he did. That alignment mattered more than any declaration. He took a slow breath. For the first time, Naruto didn't feel overwhelmed by the emotions surrounding him. He felt grounded. He knew that eventually, choices would have to be made. Conversations would have to happen. But they would happen from a place of honesty, not confusion. Naruto Uzumaki had always believed love was loud. Now he was learning that real love often spoke in quieter ways. And those quiet truths were beginning to guide him forward. Naruto began to realize that clarity did not push people away. It rearranged them. Some stepped closer with steadier footing. Some stepped back with relief. Some paused, finally understanding where they stood. And Naruto learned to let all of it happen without trying to control the outcome. The next few days passed quietly, but the quiet carried weight. Hinata trained harder than ever, not to prove anything, but because she felt secure enough to focus on herself. Naruto noticed how her confidence no longer wavered when he wasn't watching. That realization filled him with a strange mix of pride and humility. One evening, after training, Hinata spoke calmly. "You don't hover anymore." Quote. Naruto smiled. "You don't need me to." Hinata met his eyes. "I know. And that's why it matters when you choose to stay." Naruto felt the truth in that. Choice gave meaning to presence. Sakura experienced the change as balance. Naruto no longer softened reality for her, nor did he try to shield her from difficult decisions. Instead, he treated her as an equal partner in responsibility. That equality reshaped how Sakura felt around him. During a late discussion about village planning, Sakura caught herself trusting Naruto's silence as much as his words. "You don't rush me," she said. Naruto shook his head. "You don't need pushing." Sakura smiled faintly. "That kind of trust is rare." Naruto understood that with Sakura, the bond was built on shared resilience rather than longing. It was strong precisely because it didn't demand anything more. Temari observed Naruto's steadiness with sharp appreciation. When they spoke during a diplomatic visit, she noticed how he neither leaned into familiarity nor created distance. He met her exactly where she stood. "You've learned something important," she said. Naruto raised an eyebrow. "What's that?" "That respect doesn't need ambiguity," Temari replied. "And ambiguity doesn't strengthen connection." Naruto nodded. "It only complicates it." Temari smiled slightly. "Good. Too many people mistake intensity for meaning." Quote. With Temari, the connection felt clean. There were no unspoken expectations, only mutual acknowledgement of strength and understanding. Ino felt the shift most clearly in herself. Naruto's calm honesty forced her to examine her own emotions rather than bounce them off his reactions. For someone who thrived on emotional feedback, that was unsettling, but also freeing. "You're not giving me anything to push against," she said once. Naruto replied simply, "You don't need resistance to feel something real." Quote. Ino laughed softly, surprised by how true that felt. She realized that what she admired in Naruto was not the attention he gave, but the stability he carried. Naruto spent more time alone now, not because he was withdrawing, but because he was listening inward. He stopped asking himself who he should choose. He started asking what kind of man he wanted to be. Someone who avoided difficult conversations to spare feelings temporarily. Or someone who spoke gently, honestly, and allowed others to grow from the truth. The answer came easily. One night, Naruto stood beneath the stars, the village quiet around him. He understood now that affection could exist without ownership. That admiration did not always ask for reciprocity. That love, in its many forms, deserved respect more than reaction. He did not need to rush toward resolution. But he could not remain undefined forever. Naruto accepted something deeply important. Eventually, he would have to choose, not because he was pressured, but because commitment required intention. When that time came, it would not be driven by guilt or fear of hurting others. It would be guided by honesty. For now, Naruto continued forward with clarity, patience, and respect. He did not hide behind kindness. He did not exploit affection. He did not pretend ignorance. He stayed present. And presence, he learned, was the most powerful form of sincerity. Naruto Uzumaki's journey through hearts had only just begun. And this time, he would walk it with open eyes. Naruto reached a point where the village no longer felt like a place that simply needed him. It felt like a place that noticed him. That difference mattered. When people needed him, Naruto had known exactly what to do: act fast, speak loudly, give everything. But being noticed required something else entirely. It required stillness, awareness, the ability to remain grounded while emotions moved around him like unseen currents. And Naruto was learning how to stand in those currents without being pulled apart. He noticed how his presence changed the mood of a room. When he entered, conversations softened. Not because people feared him or idolized him, but because they trusted him to listen without judgment. Naruto no longer mistook that trust for obligation. He did not rush to fill it with reassurance or jokes. He let it exist. That restraint reshaped how people interacted with him, and with each other. Hinata sensed this shift most keenly. She no longer felt the nervous urgency she once carried around Naruto. Instead, there was a quiet steadiness between them. When they trained, Naruto did not guide her unless she asked. When they walked together, he matched her pace naturally, not adjusting himself out of habit but out of awareness. One evening, as they rested after training, Hinata spoke softly. "You don't treat me like I need reassurance anymore." Naruto looked at her, thoughtful. "You don't need it. You've grown." Hinata's eyes softened. "You noticed?" Naruto nodded. "I always have. I just didn't know how to show it without getting in your way." That honesty stayed with Hinata long after they parted. With Sakura, the connection settled into something solid and reliable. They no longer circled around unspoken history or old misunderstandings. Naruto trusted Sakura's judgment fully now, and Sakura felt that trust in every decision he supported without question. During a late planning session, Sakura said quietly, "You don't second guess me." Quote. Naruto shrugged. "You know what you're doing." Sakura smiled, something warm and steady in her expression. That kind of belief, it doesn't fade easily. Naruto understood. Respect, once earned, did not need constant reinforcement. Temari's interactions with Naruto remained sharp and deliberate. When they met during a diplomatic visit, their conversation cut straight to the point, free of emotional undertones or ambiguity. Temari appreciated that Naruto did not attempt to soften or embellish his words. "You don't blur lines," she observed. Naruto considered that. "I'm trying not to." Temari smirked. "Good. Blurred lines make weak foundations." With Temari, Naruto felt challenged without being tested, respected without being placed on a pedestal. It was a rare balance, and he valued it deeply. Ino experienced Naruto's steadiness as clarity. She stopped trying to provoke reactions or extract meaning from small gestures. Naruto's calm responses left no room for projection. What she felt, she understood now, belonged to her. "You're not feeding confusion anymore," she said one afternoon. Naruto smiled faintly. "I didn't know I was." Ino laughed softly. "You were. But you grew out of it." Quote. Her tone carried no resentment, only acceptance. Naruto spent more time reflecting alone, not because he felt lost, but because he wanted to stay aligned with himself. He understood now that every bond in his life was distinct, shaped by different histories, different energies, different truths. Hinata represented sincerity and quiet depth. Sakura represented trust forged through shared struggle. Temari represented respect between equals. Ino represented emotional clarity and awareness. Each mattered, but none could be treated carelessly. Naruto finally accepted something he had resisted. At some point, clarity would require decision. Not immediately, not impulsively, but intentionally. And when that time came, it would not be about choosing who deserved him more. It would be about choosing where his heart could stand honestly without compromise. As night fell over Konoha, Naruto stood once more overlooking the village. He felt calm, not because everything was settled, but because he was no longer running from awareness. He had learned that love could exist in many forms at once. But commitment required truth. And Naruto Uzumaki was finally ready to walk toward that truth, one step at a time. Naruto slowly accepted that being honest with himself did not mean rushing toward conclusions. It meant staying present long enough to understand what each connection truly asked of him. He began to notice that every bond in his life spoke a different emotional language. Some were built on shared silence, others on shared struggle, others on mutual challenge. None of them demanded the same response. And that realization helped Naruto stop forcing all feelings into a single shape. Hinata's presence continued to feel calm, but not passive. She no longer waited for Naruto to lead conversations. She spoke when she had something to say and stayed quiet when she didn't. Naruto noticed how naturally their silences fit together, how neither of them felt the need to perform inside those moments. One evening, as they walked along a quiet path, Hinata said softly, "You don't look uncertain anymore." Quote. Naruto considered her words. "I think I stopped trying to solve everything at once." Hinata nodded. "That suits you." Naruto felt something settle in his chest. With Hinata, emotions did not push or pull. They rested. And resting, he realized, was not the same as stagnation. It was stability. With Sakura, the connection remained rooted in trust. They handled responsibilities together without tension, without doubt. Naruto noticed how Sakura no longer tested his support. She relied on it without fear that it would disappear. During a late discussion, Sakura said quietly, "You don't lean on me emotionally anymore." Naruto looked at her. "Is that bad?" Sakura shook her head. "No. It means when you do lean, it'll be real." Naruto understood then that with Sakura, the bond had matured beyond dependence. What remained was something resilient, something that did not need constant affirmation to survive. Temari's influence continued to sharpen Naruto's understanding of balance. Their conversations were brief but meaningful, free of emotional haze. Temari never asked more from him than he was willing to give, and Naruto respected that clarity deeply. "You've learned restraint," she said once. Naruto nodded. "I learned that not everything needs to be claimed." Temari smirked slightly. "That's a lesson most people learn too late." With Temari, Naruto felt challenged to remain grounded, not emotionally reactive. It was a connection defined by respect rather than comfort. Ino's relationship with Naruto evolved into something unexpectedly honest. She no longer tried to pull reactions from him. Instead, she spoke openly about what she felt, without expecting him to validate or redirect it. One afternoon, she said, "You make people deal with their own emotions." Naruto raised an eyebrow. "That sounds harsh." Ino smiled faintly. "It's actually freeing." Naruto realized that clarity didn't reduce connection. It refined it. As days passed, Naruto noticed something important. People no longer clung to him emotionally. They stood beside him. That shift changed everything. He was no longer the center of emotional gravity. He was part of a network of relationships where each person remained whole on their own. And that was healthier than anything he had known before. Naruto reflected deeply one night, sitting quietly as the village slept. He understood now that love was not about accumulation. It was not about how many people felt something for you. It was about where you could stand honestly without losing yourself. Naruto didn't feel pressured anymore. He felt prepared. Prepared to speak when the time came. Prepared to choose when choice became necessary. Prepared to accept that not every feeling required the same ending. Naruto Uzumaki had spent his life fighting to be acknowledged. Now, he was learning how to acknowledge others without losing his own center. That understanding did not close any doors. It simply showed him how to walk through the right one when the moment arrived. And that moment, he knew, was drawing closer. Naruto finally realized that awareness brought a different kind of loneliness. Not the aching loneliness of being ignored or unwanted, but the quiet solitude of knowing that every step now mattered. When he had been reckless with his heart, life had been simpler. Now, every word carried weight, every pause had meaning, every choice shaped someone else's expectations. And Naruto chose to walk carefully. He noticed how people adjusted around him. Not dramatically, not painfully, but thoughtfully. Hinata no longer hovered between hope and hesitation. She stood firmly where she was, neither chasing nor retreating. Her calm did not feel like resignation. It felt like trust. Naruto sensed that whatever she felt, she was prepared to face it honestly. One evening, as they stood watching the sky darken, Hinata spoke softly. You don't run ahead anymore. Naruto smiled faintly. I used to think leading meant being in front. Hinata shook her head. Sometimes it means walking beside. Those words stayed with him long after they parted. With Sakura, the bond felt rooted and steady. There was no tension in their conversations now, no unspoken, what if, waiting to surface. Naruto trusted Sakura's decisions without questioning her strength, and Sakura trusted Naruto's silence as much as his voice. During a quiet moment after a long meeting, Sakura said thoughtfully, You don't make me wonder where I stand. Naruto looked at her. That matters. Sakura smiled. More than you think. Naruto understood then that clarity wasn't cold. It was comforting. Temari's presence remained rare but impactful. When they spoke, it was never wasted conversation. Temari respected Naruto because he never tried to claim more than what was offered. He did not confuse admiration with entitlement. You don't reach where you're not invited, she said once. Naruto nodded. I don't want to mistake access for connection. Temari smirked. Good. That mistake ruins people. With Temari, Naruto felt sharpened, grounded, reminded that strength and respect thrived best without emotional clutter. Ino's connection with Naruto transformed into something lighter. She no longer tested him or waited for emotional reactions. She spoke freely, knowing he wouldn't twist her words into expectations. You make honesty easy, she said casually. Naruto smiled. I'm just listening. Ino shook her head. Most people don't know how. Naruto realized that sometimes, love didn't want closeness. It wanted understanding. Naruto spent many nights alone now, not because he was isolating himself, but because he was learning to listen inward without distraction. He understood that he could not let guilt guide his future, nor could he let admiration decide it for him. He needed alignment. Alignment between what he felt, what he respected, and what he could commit to without regret. He accepted something quietly but firmly. When the time came, choosing one path would inevitably mean not choosing others. That reality no longer frightened him, not because it wouldn't hurt, but because honesty would hurt less than indecision. Naruto would not promise what he could not give. He would not retreat out of fear. He would not let kindness become avoidance. Standing beneath the stars, Naruto felt calm, not resolved, but ready. Ready to speak when silence stopped being kind. Ready to act when clarity demanded action. Ready to accept that love, in its many forms, deserved respect more than hesitation. Naruto Uzumaki had learned how to carry many hearts around him. Now he was learning how to carry his own. And that lesson marked the final stretch of this chapter, where awareness turned into preparation, and preparation slowly began to shape destiny. Naruto reached a point where he stopped asking when things would change and started accepting that they already had. The village felt the same on the surface. Streets familiar, voices unchanged, routines steady, but Naruto moved through it with a different awareness now. He no longer confused movement with progress or noise with certainty. What mattered was intention, and intention demanded honesty, not haste. He noticed how people interacted with him when he no longer filled every moment. When he listened instead of reacting, conversations deepened. When he spoke simply, words carried more meaning. When he stayed silent, people revealed themselves. Naruto understood then that his presence had weight not because of what he did, but because of how consistently he showed up without conditions. That consistency had drawn people closer. And now, it demanded responsibility. Hinata's presence continued to feel like quiet truth. They spent time together without labeling it as anything more than what it was: shared training, shared walks, shared stillness. Naruto noticed how Hinata no longer measured her words carefully around him. She trusted him enough to be natural. One evening, as they stood overlooking the village, Hinata said softly, "You don't make me feel like I need to be more than I am." Quote. Naruto turned to her, surprised by the simplicity of the statement. "You never needed to be," he replied. Hinata smiled. Not shyly, not nervously, but peacefully. That smile lingered with Naruto long after they parted. With Sakura, the bond felt complete in a different way. There was no tension left between them, no unresolved history tugging at the present. Naruto supported Sakura's decisions without hesitation, and Sakura trusted Naruto's judgment without needing reassurance. During a long discussion about future responsibilities, Sakura said quietly, "You don't carry my doubts for me anymore." Naruto nodded. "They're yours. And I trust you with them." Sakura felt something settle in her chest at those words. Not loss, not longing, but gratitude. Sometimes love did not ask to grow. Sometimes it asked to mature. Temari's interactions with Naruto remained precise and grounded. When they met during another diplomatic visit, their conversation stayed sharp, efficient, and honest. Naruto respected that Temari never blurred professional respect with personal curiosity. "You're careful with boundaries," Temari observed. Naruto nodded. "They protect people." Temari smirked. "They also reveal intention." Quote. With Temari, Naruto felt clarity without comfort. And he realized comfort was not always what a connection needed to be meaningful. Ino's relationship with Naruto settled into understanding. She no longer looked at him with expectation, nor did she seek emotional validation through him. Instead, she spoke openly, trusting that he would listen without shaping her words into something else. "You don't make people feel chosen or rejected," she said once. "You make them feel acknowledged." Naruto considered that. "Is that better?" Ino smiled. "It's honest." And honesty, she realized, was far more attractive than uncertainty. Naruto spent time alone reflecting. Not to isolate himself, but to remain aligned. He understood now that affection could not guide his future on its own. Nor could guilt. Nor admiration. Only truth. Truth about what he felt, what he could offer, and what kind of commitment he could stand behind without regret. He stopped fearing the moment of choice. Because choice, he realized, was not betrayal. Avoidance was. One night, Naruto stood beneath the open sky, the village lights steady below him. He accepted something deeply and fully. He could care for many people honestly. He could respect many hearts sincerely. But when the time came to choose a path, it would not be out of pressure or fear. It would be because one connection aligned with who he was becoming. Not the boy who wanted to be loved, but the man who knew how to love responsibly. Naruto Uzumaki had walked through war, loss, and redemption. Now he walked through something quieter but no less powerful. The space where awareness became intention. And intention, soon enough, would become action. Naruto understood now that patience was not the absence of decision. It was preparation. He no longer felt rushed by the emotions surrounding him, nor did he feel detached from them. Instead, he stood in the middle of it all, aware, grounded, and honest enough to admit that some things could not be solved through instinct alone. This was not hesitation. This was maturity. He noticed how the village responded to him when he stopped unconsciously positioning himself as the emotional center. People still respected him. They still trusted him. But they no longer leaned in expectation. That subtle shift told Naruto he was doing something right. Hinata felt this change deeply, though she never named it aloud. Their time together remained quiet, unforced. Naruto noticed how Hinata no longer searched his expressions for reassurance. She met him as an equal now, confident in her own footing. One evening, as they walked side by side, Hinata said calmly, "You don't make me feel uncertain anymore." Quote. Naruto turned to her. "About what?" "About myself," she answered. That stayed with him. Because with Hinata, Naruto felt no urgency to perform or prove. There was no pressure to impress, no fear of being misunderstood. The connection felt steady, like something that could endure silence, distance, and time. Naruto didn't label that feeling yet. But he acknowledged it. With Sakura, the bond continued to rest on shared understanding rather than emotion in flux. They worked together with effortless coordination, trust built over years of hardship and growth. Naruto noticed that Sakura no longer questioned whether he would support her, she simply expected it, and he delivered without hesitation. During a late discussion, Sakura said quietly, "You don't feel like someone who might leave." Naruto looked at her, surprised. Sakura smiled faintly. Not in a romantic way. In a grounding way. Naruto nodded slowly. That kind of trust did not ask for romance. It asked for reliability. And Naruto respected that deeply. Temari's presence remained sharp and clarifying. When they met during a short diplomatic exchange, Naruto felt challenged, not emotionally, but intellectually. Temari respected his restraint, his refusal to blur lines for comfort. "You're harder to misread now," she said. Naruto replied simply, "I stopped sending mixed signals." Temari smirked. "Good. Mixed signals waste time." Quote. With Temari, Naruto felt a connection rooted in mutual strength and honesty. It wasn't soft, but it was solid. And solidity mattered. Ino, ever perceptive, recognized the shift as well. She no longer tried to provoke emotional reactions from Naruto. Instead, she spoke openly, trusting that he would hear her without reshaping her feelings into something else. "You don't confuse me anymore," she said one afternoon. Naruto smiled faintly. "That's good, right?" Quote. Ino nodded. "It means whatever I feel is mine, not something you accidentally created." That clarity freed her. And Naruto respected her for owning it. As nights passed, Naruto spent more time reflecting, not on who loved him, but on how each connection fit into the life he was building. He realized something important. Love was not measured by intensity, nor by history, nor by admiration. It was measured by alignment, by whether two people could stand side by side without shrinking or overstretching themselves. Naruto didn't need to choose yet. But he could feel which connections asked for stillness, and which asked for challenge. And one of them, quiet, steady, unassuming, felt less like a question and more like an answer waiting for the right moment. Naruto Uzumaki had once chased acknowledgement from the world. Now, he was learning how to acknowledge truth within himself. And that truth was guiding him. Not loudly, not urgently, but with Naruto Uzumaki finally understood something that had taken him a lifetime to learn. Being loved by many did not mean he was meant to belong to all. It meant he had lived in a way that made people feel seen, respected, and safe. His kindness, his consistency, his refusal to abandon others, these things had grown into feelings he never expected, feelings that were real and deserved to be treated with care. And Naruto treated them with honesty. He looked at each bond clearly now. Hinata's presence felt like quiet certainty. There was no urgency there, no pressure, only steadiness, trust, and a sense of peace that did not demand answers immediately. Sakura's bond was rooted in shared history and unshakable trust. What they had was solid, complete, and free of longing, a connection that did not need to transform to remain meaningful. Temari's respect was sharp and grounded. With her, Naruto felt challenged and understood without emotional confusion, a connection built on equality rather than closeness. Ino's clarity had matured into self-awareness. Whatever she felt, she owned fully, no longer tangled in uncertainty or expectation. None of these feelings were mistakes. None of them were wrong. Naruto realized then that the real test was not choosing who mattered most. It was choosing not to lie, to himself or to anyone else. He would not promise what he could not give. He would not hide behind kindness to avoid difficult truths. He would not let indecision slowly wound the people he respected. When the time came to choose, it would be from alignment, not pressure. From truth, not fear. Standing beneath the open sky, Naruto felt calm. Not because everything was resolved, but because he was ready. Ready to speak honestly when silence stopped being kind. Ready to act when clarity demanded action. Ready to love responsibly, not impulsively. Naruto Uzumaki had walked through war, loneliness, and redemption. Now he stood at the edge of something quieter, but just as important. The moment where awareness turned into choice. And that moment would shape everything that followed. Thank you.